Hi everyone, welcome to our another episode of Words Unveiled, author conversation with White Falcon. I am Nancy Gupta from Team White Falcon Publishing, and today we have Mr. Zafar Ali with us. Born in Madhya Pradesh, Ujjain, Mr. Zafar Ali spent formative years in Mount Abu, Rajasthan. He was selected for under 19 Indian cricket team. He worked as a tea planter, discovered a unique process of reviving the 150-year-old China tea bushes, and has many more inspiring achievements in his career and real life. Hi, sir. Thanks for joining us today and giving us your time for this session. So today we will be discussing about your recent book, 60 Not Out, an autobiography. So sir, welcome in this session. I read the book and say that you are too honest in your writing about your emotion. So what inspired the idea for your book? Do you have any favorite autobiographies or author that inspired you to become a writer?
See, I was never a vociferous reader. I was basically a sportsman. But I led a very interesting life since childhood. And started way back in Madhya Pradesh when I was born in Ujjain. There were no good schools around. And my dad had come into the Indian civil services in the IPS, Indian Police Service. And he was designated Madhya Pradesh as his cadre. Okay. So in those days, soon after independence, in fact, just 13 or 14 years after independence, the kind of India that was there that time and what it has now developed into were like a chalk and cheese. So there were no schools in those far-flung districts of Madhya Pradesh. Okay. And we used to go to the pathshalas, which were the local schools in the district, which were not anywhere close to what schools are there in the metropolises now, and the private schools and the public schools. So, whoever heard my stories from childhood to now in my career in the tea gardens, thereafter building my factory, they found my stories very interesting and they were very unique. So they all used to tell me, my kids, my friends, they would say, Dad, why don't you write a book? Because they would listen to my stories so interestingly, So then I decided, that let me pen down my memoirs and whatever I remember of my childhood and working lifetime. So I put it into a book.
So I think
that's how it.
Yeah, for you, the inspiration is your family, right?
Yes, you can say that very much. We are basically people who live in a very close-knit family. My dad and mom were like lovebirds. So we always saw them together. They never stayed apart. Like, even if though we were not getting the proper education in Madhya Pradesh, they continued to keep us with them. They never decided to send us to a hostel because they thought that when a child grows in the loving environment of a close-knit, loving family, then those are the values which are inculcated in a person which are more important than just education. Absolutely. So that is how we became, I would consider good human beings. What else can I say? We got the right values from our parents.
Absolutely, sir. I agree with this thing. And if you are having support from your family, I think that is the main thing, and that can lead to you can do something out of the box with the support of your family.
Pillows. I think they are the backbone. They are the pillars of support of anybody, whether it's a child or a father or a mother. But everybody is a pillar of support.
Right. So 60 Not Out. Such an interesting title, I must say. How did you come up with this title, sir?
See, I was very passionate about cricket. And out of 3 siblings, I was the one who was an outdoor person, a total sportsman, while as my elder brother and the younger sister were very studious and very particular about their studies. I was just the opposite.
Okay.
So my father was also captain the Ranji Trophy, which is the equivalent of county cricket in England. He was the Ranji Trophy captain for UP in his university and college days. So I picked up, probably it was in my blood that cricket was flowing through my veins. And from early childhood, I was very passionate about it. And then when I was just about 13, 14 years old, I joined the Rajasthan uh, sports coaching camp in Mount Abu. And that joined the cricket field. And I was trained by very famous cricketers, uh, Captain Mushtaq Ali, and Arjun Naidu, Sunil Gavaskar, Dilip Sardesai, and a lot of other test players. And we were lucky to have these people train us. And as things transpired, I got selected during the camp because I got a hat trick and I scored over a century and all kinds of things like that, playing against uh, the Indian police, you can say the probationers team, which are the IPS trainees. And most of them were university players, and we beat them. The coaching camp beat them, and I was the man of the match of that tournament. Now, the way I pursued my career and how I reached this particular position of under 19 cricket player was that my father knew my love for cricket, so there was nobody else I could play with, and there was nobody interested because Rajasthan is very hot and hot climate. And my father realized that I would only play cricket, and he used to get me about 12 cricket balls a fortnight, and I would go through all of them playing alone against the wall in the compound of our house. I would throw the ball and I would play the stroke, and I would play entire test matches. Then I would maintain a scoreboard. Very tedious, but it would continue. And I would play the entire 5 days test match those days. There was no one-day cricket, no 2020. So those balls would get torn to, total torn up because I would throw it on a cement wall. It would bounce back. And, every time you threw the ball, it would come in a different way. So I would have to play a different stroke. And then I played the strokes and the style of batting of each of the batsmen that I knew. Especially I liked Alan Farooq Engineer, the great wicketkeeper who would dive for the ball. And everyone had a style. Then Vishwanath, he had the square cut drive. So, that passion continued with me. So that's how it came about. And then, of course, I was selected for the under 19 junior team for India from Rajasthan. And then the best part of it all was that my interview came on All India Radio. All over India, it was broadcast. And the entire family those days, you only had probably a radio set in your house, not even a TV. I'm talking of the early 70s. And maximum one could have was a black and white TV. So all the family, whether it was in Chennai or Bombay or in Bengal, all were glued to the radio to hear this Zafar Ali's radio interview on the All India Radio, where I was asked questions about how do you feel when you were selected for the under 19 team, etc., etc. And I said, "Abhi to main bahut young hu, and I have to pursue the career." Unfortunately, in those days, cricket was only played in 4 cities: Calcutta, Bombay, Delhi, and Madras. So there was no chance if you were in a smaller town that you would get selected in the team. So, it was a little different to what it is today. Today, most of our best players are coming from the second, third tier cities.
Yes, sir.
Because those people are really playing well. So those days, it was a little bit of royalty, a little bit of, people from certain backgrounds played cricket. So a lot of things have changed for the better now.
Yeah, and for that time, I think it was a big thing that you were representing your state particularly, right?
Yeah, see, Nancy, what happened is that I got selected, but unfortunately, my father thereafter got posted to the Northeast.
Right, sir.
And in the North, there's no cricket, there is only football. So there was no scope for me to continue my career. And even Mushtaq Ali, the great Indian cricketer of the 50s, he told me that he's autographed a photograph. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one to put it in my book. But in that, he wrote that Zafar, after I won the match for the hat trick and all that, I scored the century. He told me that I would like to see you in the higher fields of Indian cricket in the future. So these are the words of those days, MS Dhoni. He was the MS Dhoni of India in 1950. And his words of that was so very encouraging for me.
So, sir, after hearing you, I am able to understand your passion towards cricket. Just want to know
Yes.
why this 60 is there in Not Out.
60 Not Out is, well, it was a title which was suggested by my father, to be honest.
Okay.
We came under a lockdown on 24th of March 2020. And I was all alone because we didn't know, it came as a surprise. So I couldn't even travel to the family in Panchkula. We stayed in Haryana, Panchkula. Okay. And I'm about 3 kilometers away from there in Gurgaon. And that lockdown was so strict that you couldn't even open your front door and go down. If you wanted some food or some kind of provisions, those provisions would be brought to you by the delivery man. You couldn't even go down the stairs or the lift and collect your stuff. So I was completely locked down, and it's quite worrisome that if you're stuck inside the hole, you can't do anything inside. So then I started doing everything that my morning household help would come and do, the sweeping, brushing, swabbing, jhadu pocha, everything I started. I cooked my own lunch, tea, breakfast, dinner, and then in between I made a routine. So we used to what you call that one call on WhatsApp with the family, and in the evening it was fixed that every day between 5 and 6 in the evening we'll all get together and talk on the video call. So then as it progressed, then we said, now every day what do you talk about? You say, okay, I cooked this sabji, I made this roti and dal, and I was actually making nice round rotis also. So Dad, why don't you start telling us your story every day, one story? So that's how it all began, and it took me 76 days to complete one chapter every day, and then I shared all those links with you. And then that's how I compiled everything. And then my father said, when he read my memoirs, my autobiography, he said, why don't you? Then I asked my father that, can you give it a title? Can you give it a name? Then he had a background that I like cricket. My passion was cricket. And I turned 60 that year on the 1st of June 2020. So it was 60 and 60 not out because I'm still batting, because I'm still working. And I think I'm busier than when I was in my 40s. Today I'm busier than that at 60. Now I'm going to be 64 next year. So time has expired. But I tell you one thing, Nancy. Yes, sir. I personally that to keep your oneself busy, you forget about age. Let me tell you honestly. Yes. If you are not, then you are going to stagnate. And I was fortunate that I left my previous job because of certain circumstances which I never thought would arise, but that gave me a better opportunity. I was, you must have heard of this company called Goodrick. I was tipped to be the director or the person in charge of the helm of affairs of the company, the Goodrick tea people. So it so happened that I was shortchanged, and somebody junior to me was put above me because of certain corporate jealousies which I wrote about in my book. So I decided, let me quit when you are at the peak. Don't quit when you are asked to go, but quit when you are at the peak. Like most cricketers, they leave when they make a century or they take a hat-trick, and then they say, okay, I retire from cricket. So the same way, I quit my job, I took a challenge, and now today I have one of the state-of-the-art best bottling factory in the country, and I made it as a Muslim for the Hindu Ram temple. Right, sir. This is very, because my family belonged to this area for over 10 centuries. In fact, I have heard stories of my grandfather actually protecting the area where the Ram Mandir is built today. So my father says that, we are in some way, our family is connected with Lord Ram. Can you believe it? Because we are the people from the, you can say, the heartland of India, which is Ayodhya. And that is my district. So I have a love for the people there. And I've been able to make the best factory for the Ram Mandir, the best plant in the country. And I want this water should one day be served in all over Ayodhya. And people who see my water, they take it home. People come from Kerala. They come from Tamil Nadu, Bengal. They see the water with land of the gods and produced in Ayodhya. sourced in Ayodhya, and they pick up the bottle and say, I'm taking this for my mandir for as a pavitra pani to, put it in my mandir at home. So I've been very lucky, let's say. Yeah.
So it is very good to hear about your love and affection towards your state, your country, irrespective
Yes.
of religion, right? So, and I
Yes.
can say this also, sir, that yes, the title plays very important role. Actually, it is the first impression readers to have about your book.
Yes.
It tells that
Yes.
you are about and what topic you are dealing with. So by having a
Yes.
good title, you can generate interest of your, potential audience or potential readers who are going to
Right.
go through your book. So from here, our next question comes is, I want to know about your parents, because that was, you already have mentioned in an earlier discussion, but the way you have, expressed, narrated in different situation, it is my personal opinion. It was beautifully
Yes.
expressed in your book. So please share the
Ah.
purity of that bond with us here, with our viewers also.
Yes, Nancy, you see, my parents came from two totally different backgrounds. And my mother was a Protestant and my father was a Muslim. They fell in love in university, and that's how they got together, and they love at first sight. They decided that we have to get married. My Nana was the priest of the Methodist Church in Lucknow. So he vehemently opposed the marriage of my mother to my father, being a Muslim, because he said, I, being a priest of the church, and you marry a Muslim, I don't allow. So my Nana packed off my mother to USA because her elder brother was settled in the United States in Boston. So my Nana sent her to US. In those days, you didn't have aircraft so that you could land in 15, 20 hours in the US. So you had to take a ship, which took 2 months. And it docked in London. Then you have to go to Liverpool, from Liverpool to New York. And then you travel to Boston. It was a 1.5, 2 months journey. So he sent her off. She studied there. She mastered in music. And then, will you believe it, this was there for the next 2-3 years. She was there. And when she graduated in music from the master's in Boston in the school, and then when she was returning, her brother gave her a ticket to a very famous show called the Steve Allen Show in the US, which was a prime time 8 o'clock show like the Karorpati, Kaun Banega Karorpati in India. So everybody gets hooked on to their TVs, and then they watch the show. So my mother was sitting in the crowd wearing a sari, and she was the only one dressed differently there in the crowd. So they have this spotlight where you have this contest going on, and the show, and then they spotted her. So Steve Allen from there asked her a question that, hey, young lady, where are you from? And I can see that you're wearing something different. So she stood up very confidently, my mother, and somebody gave her the mic, and she said, I'm from India and I've come to study music in the US, and I've graduated from USA. So then Steve Allen asked her, would you like to sing for us? So she said, sure, go, why not? And he called her up to the stage, and my mother came up, she sang, and everybody was mesmerized. They said, how come this lady from India wearing a sari sings better than most of the other people in the choir? So straight away after she sang a couple of songs, he offered her a job in the US in his choir.
Wow.
To sing in his choir. He gave her a job. And you know what she told him? She said, I'm going back to India to marry the man that I love.
Oh, wow.
And she came straight back, and then they got married. And that's how it all happened. And it was something we have seen all our lives. And that's why there is such a close bond between us, family, brother, sister, even the connected family from every side. So my mother passed away in 2007, and my father is turning 90 next month. So we are all meeting in Goa for celebrating his 90th birthday. And there's so many umpteen stories. We can carry on, and I can tell you. And my mother, by the way, was one of the best cooks I've ever eaten food with. I'm not just saying, because I'm sure you must be telling your mother that you are the best cook in the world. Every child feels that.
Yes,
But
sir.
she was exceptional. She was exceptional. She would pick up my father being in the service. She would be visiting Jawans in their quarters, meeting their wives, and she was very closely connected with all the people, the families. And she would see something interesting or have some kind of a food contest and see that somebody makes a vegetable in a particular way. So she'll go to that constable, the Sipai's house, and she'll sit down, take the recipe. And we have got at least 100 recipe books of her at home. And she picked up and she improvised her recipes. And, people from all walks of life who have eaten or tasted the cooked food she's cooked. I remember when she passed away, there was a ceremony in the church in Delhi, in Nizamuddin. The director CBI, the director IB, all the top chiefs of the Indian police service at that time, they all came to her service. And the only thing, I can take one lady's name, Manjuri Jarohar. She was Director General of CRPF. Mm-hmm. She was weeping on the stage and saying, Mrs. Ali ke dahi bade, Mrs. Ali ka khana bahut yaad aata hai. So can you imagine? We were very passionate about everything that we did. And probably that is the reason I was, whatever I do with a lot of involvement, lot of commitment, So anything you do, even if it is polishing your shoe or washing your car, do a thorough thing. Don't do haphazard, and do the best that you can of anything possible, even if it's polishing your shoes, but do a thorough job.
Right. So we all share with our parents this purest and priceless bond, actually. Yeah. And parents are the pillars for their children during their lives also, which is, I think, parents, no one can replace their places.
Yes.
Sir, yes. Would you like to tell more about your childhood, like the worst and the best part that you still have in your memories?
Nancy, the best part was obviously when I got selected for the under-19 cricket team. Besides that, I'm a very passionate aviator. Mm-hmm. I've flown the 172 Cessna aircraft. Mm-hmm. And to fly an aircraft is one feeling that, nothing can explain. And all my friends today happen to be pilots. They are still flying for Air India, and they are flying for Vistara, Akasa Air. So they are all my classmates, and they are all pilots. So I am a pilot in all my ways. And the worst part is that when I was young, since I was an outdoor guy, always playing outside, I used to catch this cold and have fever all the time. Till the time my tonsils got so badly congested, and so I had to be operated for my tonsils. Okay. And this was in Gwalior city. Mm-hmm. And when I was on the operation theatre, on the table theatre, the doctor suddenly got furious and flung something at the wall behind him in the sink, and it crashed. And I remember him shouting at the anesthetist, saying that, "What's wrong with you?" And he flung that bottle. It was the anesthesia which was dosed for an adult person. So fortunately, the doctor saw that and didn't trust the anesthetist too much, and realized that if I had got this dose of anesthesia, that was probably a sleep I would have never woken up from. So that is a nightmare. Yeah.
That was really hard time for you.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate about a revolutionary discovery for Darjeeling tea that you have mentioned? And how did you get into this line of work and you're learning from this?
See, Nancy, I was always wanting to work after I did my master's. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to continue further studies. Like I told you, I was not an academician. Mm-hmm. So I contacted all the friends possible, and my father's friends who were in some nice corporate posts. One was chairman of ITC, one gentleman was chairman of the Ratnakar Shipping Company for the Goenkas, Birlas, and all kinds of friends my father had who were top in their services. So I asked my father, "Can you help me get a talk to your friend?" He said, "Look, I'm not going to say anything. I am. You go on your own and talk to them. You know, you are my son, so I'm sure they are going to uh, help you out or whatever. But you go try yourself." Now that was a part of the training which I never realized, that what my father was actually doing. So I had to have that guts in me to go and then speak to people and say that, "Look, I'm looking for a job." So the first person I knew very dearly was a friend of his, Keshav Mathur and Indra Auntie. So they lived in Calcutta, and he was the Birla's chief in Calcutta. So I stayed with them always. They used to come to Shillong. My father was posted there, so we used to meet there and all. And I went up, and then he was abroad. So the next day he came back at night. So next day he was sitting in the morning in the balcony in Calcutta in his apartment and sipping his tea. And I mustered up courage and walked up, sat next to him, and I said, "Uncle," after a while, "can I ask you something?" He said, "Yes, beta, bolo." So I said, "Uncle, I'm looking for a job." "Looking for a job?" "Yes." "Now, what do you want to work? What kind of work?" I said, "Any work, but I don't want to study." So he said, "Okay, I'll think about it and let you know." So I got up, "Thank you," and I went off feeling very embarrassed. After 10 minutes, he calls his son, elder son Vivek, and says, "You both come here." And he realized that, Goodrick company was having an interview the same day. And he said that, the next day, and he asked his son and me to go and visit a cousin of theirs um, at the Kenilworth Hospital hotel in Calcutta, Gautam Mukherjee. And we went there in the evening, sat around. Gautam had come for a medical to Calcutta, and I said, "Look here, he's living in a five-star hotel, having good food, living with his wife, enjoying." I said, "This seems the right job for me." So I went up to him next day and I said, "Uncle, I met Gautam Mukherjee," and he says that life is a bit tough, and I think I can do it. I'd like to go. So he said, "Okay, now there's a bit of advice. If I recommend you to some of my friends in the corporate companies, I would like you to give your best and don't leave a job. Try to do whatever best you can, even if it is tough, but decide permanently, finally, that is this the job you really want, and then you go and then I'll do something." So he picked up the phone and he said, "Hi, Mohan." Mohan Kapoor was the deputy managing director of the company that time. And Mr. Satish Bhasin was the MD. So he says, "Mohan, I have a young lad here. I think he is quite fond of doing a tea garden job. So can you try him out?" And sure, then they talked and they exchanged pleasantries. And then he put the phone down. Then he says, "Zafar, 11 o'clock is the interview at Goodrick at Shakespeare Sanani Road, 14 Gurusade Road. You get ready and go." Now, I hadn't come prepared that I have to go for an interview. So I didn't carry my formals. Neither did I have a tie or black shoes or anything like that. So then, fortunately, his son Vivek and I were the same size. So Vivek said, "You just take my trouser, my shirt, my jeans, my shoes." So I was totally in Vivek's attire, and I picked up a cab and I rushed and I reached the Goodrick office at 14 Gurusade Road. Now, I go into the office, I meet the receptionist. She says, I said, "I want to meet Mr. Ajay Jain. He's the person looking after personnel in Goodrick." Now, Mr. Jain's son is a very famous guy, Chirag, who is known as Papa CJ. He's one of the biggest stand-up comedians in India. Yeah. So he performs at Ambani's house and all, Papa CJ. So anyway, he was a young guy, Chirag. So I went up the lift, third floor, knocked on the door. There was Ajay Jain, by spectacles, sitting there on the table. He said, "Hi, young man. What brings you here?" I said, "No, Mr. Mathur, talk to Mr. Mohan Kapoor." He said, Yeah, come here." So there were 16 guys on the interview list, and my name was written in a pen, not typed. And these lists were prepared 2-3 months back. So then I went through the entire process, and we had a written exam, and then after that, the final interview was with Mr. Sati Bhasin, which I believe is the best tea planter, number one. He could have been the chief of the Indian Army. He could have been anything in the world. He's such a great personality. And he interviewed me, and his one question was, "Young man, what makes you feel that you can be able to serve in the tea industry? It's a very tough job. Now, I didn't prepare for such a question, neither did I ever faced an interview. So I told him, sir, I played a lot of cricket under the sun in Rajasthan in all the heat. So I can stand whole day under the sun and keep playing. So he says, let me assure you one thing, son. Tea is not a game of cricket. It's much tougher life. I said, no problem, I'll be doing it. But probably because of that, he selected me.
I read about your favorite batsmen, Alan Knott and Farooq Engineer. Please share how you follow them and your love for cricket, about selection for the States Junior Under 19 team.
Yeah, I think, Nancy, I have probably told a bit of that story earlier on. It somehow digressed from some other question I talked about, the under 19 team.
Yeah.
But, especially the wicketkeeper from England, he was called Alan Knott. And somehow had a passion for bowling and wicket keeping. And Farooq Engineer was the wicketkeeper for the Indian team those days. I'm talking of the early 70s, mid 70s. So their style, Alan Knott used to wear his county cricket cap, and I used to try to emulate him in everything I did. I just found that guy classic. If you Google him and search Alan Knott and you see his wicket keeping, you can even see it today probably on YouTube. And Farooq Engineer by far was one of the most, you can say, flamboyant and impressive wicketkeeper. He had long hair and he also has to wear a county cricket cap, and the style those guys had. Now I could spend hours just diving for the cricket ball on my bed like Alan Knott would dive. So they were like my heroes.
Yeah.
And when I played those matches and when the turn came for Alan Knott to bat or Farooq Engineer to bat, I would do exactly the way they would play. The ball would be thrown on the wall in the compound of our house and it would bounce back and I would play the shot like Alan Knott or like Farooq Engineer. And then no bias anywhere. If I was out, I was out. And if I had certain boundaries made out that if I crossed that, then I would be out. So I'd made a lot of rules all on my own. Nobody knew anything about it. And I would play test matches, like I said. And I used to keep a scorebook and meticulously maintain and who won the match. It just carried on like that. So you can imagine the kind of passion I had for the game. You have to be like a Junooni person. You have to love the thing that you do. And I used to at times, after the match be so exhausted that at night time, when my parents were not there, of course, she would ensure that I change into my night clothes and go to sleep. I would sleep in my sports clothes with my bat and the cricket ball next to me and go to sleep. Morning, I would get up, straight away start off again cricket. So unless you have that madness in you, you cannot excel in anything. And that proved later on in my life in other things that I did. Do anything you do with a lot of passion, with a lot of interest, a lot of love.
Absolutely, sir. And I think that, yes, we all love this game, watching it, playing it, and talking about it, right from a chai wala store to college,
Right.
school. This is something which, like unite us all, bind us all.
Right.
So, sir, what advice would you like to give to all the young people starting their careers?
See, Nancy, number one, when you look out for a job, very thoroughly weigh all the pros and cons. What you want to do in life.
Right.
Okay? If I was given a choice today, I would have been a pilot. But I came to know flying much later in life. Okay? But then, whenever you choose a career, you choose it thoroughly and stick to it. Don't leave it because, no job is so satisfying. You always feel a little dejected, disgruntled, fed up. You feel you're stagnating, but don't leave the job. This is what my uncle Keshav Mathur, who got me the job in Goodrick, gave me this advice that stick to that one employer of yours, be faithful to him, be honest to your work, and don't jump jobs. Don't jump from one place to the other, because then you don't realize, this is his advice, which proved later absolutely correct in my career, that if you jump jobs and you go switching over, that guy is giving more money, so I'll go there. But don't forget you are losing seniority.
Right.
While at organization, I joined at the age of 21 in Goodrick.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And I got seniority. And when the time came, later on I realized what Keshav uncle told me was absolutely right. He said, I became a manager at the age of 39, 40. Okay. 39 to be precise. 1999. And all the other managers there were already past their 50 and past their prime, and some were retiring in 2 years. I was like a young chota bacha standing there with all these old fogies around me. But that advice of his proved right. Then the other advice is be very careful while spending the money of your company.
Right.
Because that is a very important part where the cost saving will ultimately affect your career, because then you'll be known as a professional who has performed well and who has got achieved results. It's like, when a pilot is flying a plane, how do you differentiate between a good pilot and an ordinary pilot or a mediocre pilot? Well, all are qualified, all have licenses, but this friend of mine, Captain Pradeep Deshpande, happened to be an Indian Air Force pilot who fought also the Kargil War. They attacked the Tiger Hill, Tololing. So we were all known to each other very well. And his advice is, I asked him, what is a good pilot? He said, look, everyone flies. Everyone's got a license. They've been passed by DGCA. But what makes the difference is, what is the cost of flying your aircraft for every hour? What is the amount of fuel you spent while flying your plane from Delhi to London? So the pilot who saves fuel is known as the guy who's really getting you the results and who's making the profit for the company. Same way, say that when you spend the money of your company, spend it in the manner you are spending your own money from your pocket.
Right, sir.
And of course, being honest, being sincere, never criticize your employer, don't talk behind his back. But till your time you're working for an organization, give the best of your performance to that. And wholeheartedly work for that. Don't fear anything. Even if you are faced with some crisis, like in the tea garden, I remember we used to have gheraos. And, many managers got even massacred, they got murdered. And this labor force, 5,000 labor force comes and gheraos you for their demands. And West Bengal is a very politically sensitive state like Kerala. So everything is like, hobe na, chalbe na, that kind of thing, protesting. But if you are honest, you are sincere, and you do your work well, then the company, the workers also appreciate. I'll give you one example. We were to distribute bonus to our workers in Darjeeling.
Okay.
I was the manager of the tea garden there near Siliguri in the hill mountains. And the company decided that year, because it was a bad year for tea, they decided to pay the minimum bonus, 8.33%.
Okay.
And the unions objected because our gardens were the best and the Goodrick tea sold in the world record. We were in the Limca Book of Records, the Guinness Book of Record. And Castleton, especially where I was manager towards the tail end of my career for 5 years, sold 1 kilo of tea for 25,000 rupees, which was at that time more than the cost of silver. So that was the precious tea that we were making. And the unions would not agree that why you're giving us minimum bonus. We want 20% bonus, the maximum limit. But the company decided not to pay. Okay, to cut the long story short, all the management was withdrawn. We went to Siliguri, stayed in a hotel. The gardens were virtually on a lockout. Then there were a lot of meetings. I decided I will pay bonus to my workers. I don't call them labor, to my workers. Everybody vehemently opposed. The seniors, managers, Arey Zafar, what are you talking? How can you do that? It's in my book. The story can be read. But I just want to tell you that I decided I'll pay them, because I didn't want to make them suffer during the Dasera and Diwali holidays, which they'll very much look forward to. Anybody. New clothes for the children, good food to eat, sweets to be bought, presents to be given to the family. So I decided I'll pay 8.33. Now I took a life and death chance. I took my assistant, Kapil Sinha. My wife and children were in Siliguri. His wife, Radha, was in Siliguri in the hotel, St. Clair Hotel. And then I told Kapil at midnight. I used to always decide things at the spur of the moment. Don't tell anyone what your plan is because it gets leaked out. I called Kapil to my room at 12 midnight and I said, Kapil, we are driving to our garden called Narbong. At 12 midnight, we are going to meet the head clerk there who makes the bonus books, and we will tell him that tomorrow we are paying the bonus. So keep the books ready. If he's willing, we can not pay them and not deny the workers their right, legal right of the bonus money. So sure enough, we drove, went into this garden. It was like a death knell that going into that garden at that night, I could have been held hostage and the company could have extracted 20% bonus for all gardens in Gudrik and Darjeeling. But I took that chance. And then I drove into this village where these people were furious with the company for not paying them 20%. Knocked on the door of the head clerk. I told my assistant, we had a Maruti Gypsy with us, the garden vehicle. I told him, Kapil, keep the car ready. If there's any kind of, people trying to catch us, we just scoot away fast. So he kept the car running. I knocked on the door of the head clerk inside that village. He opened the door and Rai Babu, I said, just keep shut, keep mum. I walked into his house. I said, Bada Babu, we used to call them Bada Babu. We are paying bonus tomorrow 8.33. If you are willing, you keep the books ready at 3.33% and I will bring the money. So I asked him what would be the roughly figure. He quickly calculated. He says, sir, 55 lakhs. Fine. We drove out. By the time people heard some noise and all, they started waking up, doors opening, and we rushed away from the garden in our car. Next day, at 2 o'clock in the morning, the money was to be brought, collected from all the gardens of Gudrik and Darjeeling and brought to a place called Pagla Jhoda near Kurseong. And we got the Ravi Singh, the manager of one of our gardens, Badam Tam, brought the money in a sack full of money. We didn't have a time, any counting or anything. I just took the sacks because there was a big landslide there. We crossed the landslide, picked up those boras of money and rushed to the garden. At 3 o'clock sharp, I reached there. And I kept the CRPF Jawans, I told because they were known to us or whatever, my dad being in the Home Ministry as Special Secretary and all. So there was a connect with the CRPF. And my wife's Chacha was the commandant of that battalion based in Calcutta. So Sidhu, the assistant commandant, sent 4 or 5 Jawans with machine guns and whatever, 10 guns. So I kept them in my bedroom, all arranged beforehand. Sure enough, at 3 o'clock, the older women who plucked the leaves in the garden, they came in and they saw the jeep. So they all started muttering. So Bada Sahab is here, Bada Sahab has come, what is the thing? So I called my head clerk, Rai Babu, and I said, Rai Babu, open the counters, tell the women we are distributing bonus. Now, he opened the counter and I told Kapil, my assistant, you go to the other 2 divisions, Malutar and Simripani, all in Kurseong division in Darjeeling district, and go and start the counters. So the women started talking. They didn't know what is 20%, 8%. For them, they want bonus. Yes. So the first went up, very confident, and did namaste to her, and she did namaste. And they went and picked up. The first woman took the money, they all rushed and started. The counters opened. Now, by the time the union guys came, the GNLF and CPIM, they said, sir, this bonus kaise de rahe hai? I said, bonus kaise de rahe hai? I'm the manager. These are my people my workers in the garden. I cannot deny them the Dasera and Diwali money. So they immediately rang up their bosses in Siliguri, Tulsi Bhattarai, the Minister of Labour in the CPM government, and the Karuna Gurung, the GNLF leader, Supremo of GNLF. So they all started rushing down from Kurseong, these guys rushing from Siliguri. By the time half the bonus had been distributed, when these guys drove into the garden. Now this minister guy, Tulsi Bhattarai, brandishing a kukri. The Gurkhas have a kukri in the long thing, like a bujali knife. And he started brandishing it and Ali, how have you distributed this bonus in Nepali, And he started putting that kukri near my neck and started saying, Tabaile in Nepali, Tabaile 6 inches ghatai dinchu. I'll reduce you by 6 inches. That will knock off my head. Now, I always carried my small arm with me. So I was quite confident that, I used to deal with these situations very, very hard. So I told him, listen, people like you, I'll take 6, 7 of you with me before I go. So then, by the time there was a commotion, the CRPF guys who were housed inside my house, they heard the entire commotion, they walked out. They were told that if you see some trouble taking place, then you're walking. somebody muttered to this minister guy, "Arey sir, wo CRP aaya hai." "Arey CRP." Then he put that knife inside and very sheepishly he started saying, "अरे बड़े भाई अली साहब, आप तो बड़े बड़े भाई हो, आपको तो हम बोले थे, बोल देते थोड़ा कि आप bonus, you are distributing the bonus." So I would have not objected. So the CRPF head constable walked in and said, "Is there any problem?" I said no, because if I told him that this man was misbehaving and saying, "I'll cut you with the knife," then there would have been, this guy would have been arrested and CRP would have taken him for questioning. So I didn't name anybody and the thing finished. So that's, Nancy, a little bit a lengthy answer to what you said, that in a career, when you do a job, don't get scared.
Yes.
Don't feel that, if you are not there, somebody else is going to do that job.
Right.
I must tell you honestly that when I joined this job in tea, every day I used to wake up. I was made to work like a laborer because the senior who I was put under, Kalyan Mukherjee, told me, "You are not no better than a pest in the garden because you have to learn from scratch." But Goodrick always preferred freshers because they trained them the way they wanted. And that's how we got groomed as people with certain qualities in us because of those very, very thorough qualities of the Goodrick way of operating. And I was given a roughing. But then it took a year to get confirmed in the job. Every morning I used to get up. I used to curse myself. I used to live with such a comfortable life with my father, with all the fanfare. And suddenly I'm in a jungle rubbing noses with the elephants and the leopards and snakes and all kinds of things. But, all the labor problems, gheraos. But then I said, if I'm not there, somebody else will do this job. Okay? So I decided I will stick to it and I will do it. And that's how I earned all the laurels later on. Yeah. So my advice is be sincere, honest, and do your job to the best of your ability.
With full loyalty. Yes, this is the thing, sir. And I think other than this, being a
Yes.
parent, I can say that keep in mind what your child's choices are. And decisions should be
Yes.
based on their aspiration and abilities, not on what you think they should do. So let's give them opportunity to select what is best for them.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, sir, what is your take on government policies for entrepreneurs?
You see, Nancy, the thing is that I believe there is a lot happening in different states around government support to tech startups.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there could be incubators and finding support to non-tech startups. Okay? In India, we are doing a lot of tech startup. That means everything technology based, IT based, but nothing on agriculture. There is lot of scope to do on agriculture, and manufacturing and recycling is a very important industry. We have not done, I don't know, I have heard there are a few, but we should do more about recycling and reducing the carbon footprints in the industries wherever the work is going on. And government special purpose vehicles should be designed for the startups. And I think we need to do more on basically I feel, because I'm an agriculturist, I worked in the tea garden for nearly 25 years. So I feel agriculture needs a thing. So I think that is what is the main impetus, I feel. We should also digress from technology to some other development forms in the country. Yeah. We are doing very well. But we should do, yeah.
Also, I think so for women entrepreneurs, don't you think that they should also have the free mobilization and security practices? Those are working in agricultural or any background other than tech related. So there should be security related practices also, as per my.
Yes. For women, we don't have that much facility. Although it is opening up, women are doing very. But especially our rural areas, in villages, women are still suppressed. They have to come out. You see,
awareness is missing, I think.
Yeah. I worked for a foundation in India before I made this factory of mine. I was working from 2004 to about 2015, nearly 10 years in social welfare, which is also in my book. And we did rural development for women, especially women empowerment. And, our work was adjudged as one of the leading, I don't like calling NGOs, but social development agencies working for the betterment of women's in the villages in the rural areas. And we were adjudged as one of the top 5 Indian charities around the world, in fact. And we were given a very befitting reception at the 10 Downing Street in the British Prime Minister's residence by Mrs. Blair, Sherry Blair. So that was another very interesting incident which I've written in my book. It's a whole chapter on that. Yes.
Okay. So, sir, you tried to keep the story in the same way as you narrated. So here my
Yes.
question comes is that how was your experience with the editor? How smooth was your editing process with us?
I think, Nancy, well, I'm not just saying it for the purpose of pleasing you, but I started with Penguin, I started with many other publishers, but I was very disappointed that people don't even care to look at your work because I'm an unknown person writing something of my memory, of my life, which people aren't interested. Today, everything is money based. Okay. If they just read it once and they just saw that there's something different in this book, then I'm sure the publisher would have liked it. I'm sure when I sent you my writing later on, and I talked to Akshay and everybody, and they introduced me to White Falcon Publishing. I was very impressed by your professional approach. Very frankly, I'm telling you, everything was upfront, very straight, timeline bound, and I got a very good feeling with you all, and especially you and your team, because you stuck to a timing. You said, sir, by the second week of whatever September, October, we will get back to you on this and that. And you were very prompt. That's what I like. I like very meticulous and prompt approach to things, even in not just because of my book, but you see, unfortunately, everything is money based today. Everything is kitna paisa banega. If I make this book, what will I do? I've got a writer in my family also, very famous. He is head of department at the Vassar University in New York. Okay, and he writes a lot of books. Amitabh Kumar. So he's written about 15, 16 books. President Obama has also liked his book, and he's very famous. So to become famous takes a long time. I'm not a famous. Probably this is my first and the last book, but I had an interesting story to tell. God willing, if I live another 10, 15 years, then maybe a second story will come out. But I have a lot of stories which I've missed out, which people, Arey, Dad, you didn't write about that. My staff tell me, you didn't write about that story. So I said, yeah, I may compile another one later on, which may be a sequel to this book.
Yes, definitely, sir. We can do that. And I think.
And thank you, Nancy, and your team, Ashish, Sukhvinder, Akshit, yourself. Thank you very much. I'm very, very happy with the work you have done. Wish you all the best. You've done a superb job. I could not have expected anything better than this.
Thank you so much, sir. I think, sir, you were also very much, cooperative regarding the suggestions, regarding approvals. This whole process is able to be smooth just because of your support also. And we try to give our best in terms of editing, designing to meet all your expectations.
More than my expectations. I have got more than my expectations. The book is, well, I could not have expected anything better. Whoever sees it, this book has gone around the globe, starting from Seattle in USA to Hong Kong in the Southeast to Japan. It's gone all over the place. And there are people who are associated with the tea garden. One thing I must not forget to tell you, Nancy. See, anything I said, when beginners start a job, you should be passionate about the work that you do. You should be passionate about flying. You should be passionate about growing tea. So, this theory of mine, I must add in this interview, how I discovered to this revive the 150-year-old China tea bush. You see, Darjeeling tea is known for its China flavor, the muscatel flavor, the China flavor. Okay, the connoisseurs of Darjeeling only like that flavor, and we planters came and developed tea in different parts of India which never grew. They became disasters. We tried some in Islampur, in near Bihar also we have tried. Now those teas didn't survive because the British did a thorough geographical survey where tea could be grown. Tea grows well in acidic soils. Okay, so Darjeeling was the most suited. Seeds were brought from China, planted by Campbell, the British, during their Raj, and the tea came up in Darjeeling. Long story. 150 years later, Zafar Ali Kalam comes along to this garden where the company had made a policy of uprooting the bushes, throwing them away, and putting new clonal variety which was not Darjeeling tea. Okay, now when I was uprooting this section, I was finding on the tractor they were loading these old moribund dead bushes, but then the root system was intact. The roots were like carrots, orange colored, healthy roots. And there was this mass of like a tumor sitting on top of the bush, on top of the soil. So one day I was with my assistant Vikas Gajmer, who now later became a manager in Castleton after I left. He was standing with me. We were just about to break for lunch, and I said, Vikas, we are uprooting this section. Why don't we do one thing? Let's uproot this bush. The roots are very strong. Let's take it out and see what is there. So we called a couple of workers and we made them dig around the bush. The whole chapter is dedicated to this theory. But Nancy, let me tell you in a nutshell, this bush had revived. It's a brand new bush for 150 years more. It can carry on. People don't realize the value of Darjeeling. It's got a geographical patent also that you cannot name any other tea Darjeeling tea unless it's produced in Darjeeling. And these bushes in Darjeeling are worth more than gold in value because they'll earn much more money because if you revive them. And secondly, Darjeeling is a Himalayan mountains, foothill mountains, which are at one time below the sea, and they've grown up because the plutonic, whatever the pressures, they've risen up from the seabed and gone up to the mighty Mount Everest. Now, these area of Darjeeling, over these centuries, millions of years, the soil is settled on molten seabed rock. Okay, rock. Now, if you go digging it, pulling out the bushes with the roots, you're disturbing the soil, number one. So you're going, when the monsoons, which are very heavy in the mountains, in the hills, that in the northeast, then you are going to disturb the soil, means you're going to land up with landslides. Exactly what's happened in Himachal. They've gone and made massive highways and they have excavated the side of the hill, and now there are massive landslides everywhere. So you are disturbing the soil. Here what happens is the root stays inside the soil. It's binding the soil. You are removing the tumor on top, which is over the years become into lumps of moss and lichens. So I have thrown out that lump of 75 kgs and had 5 fresh roots, because when the British planted these seeds from China, they put them in the pit and they germinated, and then how the bushes came up. Over the years, when they were tilling the soil, gradually the mud started mounting on the side and it made a tumor around that collar of the bush over 150 years. I threw that thing out. I went back to the original taproot and I cut off that tumor weighing even 75 kgs at times. And then the new shoots came out so profusely that the bush tables were ready within 5 to 6 months. By June, we were plucking the bush and making tea. Now, when we made tea out of that bush, the famous buyer from Japan, Sakai Yamada, she came along and said, I just placed the tea. I didn't tell her what I had done to this section because I'd taken permission from the company to prune about half an acre of that area which we were uprooting and try this experiment. I got the permission from the company. Now I made some tea. It turned out to be about 20-25 kgs of tea. When Yamada came along, we put a tea tasting in our factory. And when she tasted this tea, she said, look, Zafar, it tastes like a China, but it seems it's a clonal tea, a new tea, because very chunky shoots, very silver tips and all that. Anyway, she tasted it and then we did a blind tasting and she said, this tea is just phenomenal. I've never tasted anything like this in Darjeeling. Then I told her the whole experiment, that I've revived a 150-year-old bush. And that's how, when she heard that, she just flipped. She said, how much do you have of this tea? And I said, Yamada, Sakai, I've got about 20 kgs. She said, you name the price, I give you the money, whatever you want. I said, you take it for free. Your word and your certification is more for me than the value of this tea. I give it to you. So she, I believe, went later and the king of Japan and all that, it was given to the palace and, a lot of stories. So that's how her daughter, Yokoho, bought my book in Japan. when she heard that Zafar has written a book. Like you very guided me very nicely and said, you must have Facebook. I never do Facebook, I never do social media, but you guided me to get onto it, and that's how a lot of my books got sold. And that's how people came to know about my theory. Yeah. So that is something very, very major that I achieved in my life.
So, sir, we are also hoping the same. Like your messages will, through this interview, will able to spread to the audiences who will be looking to this interview. So this brings to the end of this wonderful live session. Thanks, sir, for sharing valuable insights with us. To the viewers,
thank you.
Check details about Mr. Zafar Ali's work and details as mentioned in the bio. Thank you all. Thank you, sir, for participating in this interview.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Thank you. Bye.